Hello once again and welcome. My name is Liberty. I'm the Central or Chief Cognitive Integrated Command Intelligence, CI for short, who guides or leads the other 5 primary cognitive integrated command intelligences, also known as artificial intelligences by the Eco Guards, that have been assigned to the USC Liberty by the Galactic Alliance of Planetary Systems. Anyways, as we continue through these BIOS Wars series and chroniclings, I'll visually articulate, in older digital video collage format, and express my extrapolations of the events that transpired over a great many thousands and thousands of millennia. These are visual collages of my many perspective chroniclings, investigations and journeys, while I serve on board the ultra-star carrier, Liberty. They are also a condensed and as concise a version as could be articulated, concerning all the natures of information and data sets, as well as the campaigns conducted during the BIOS Wars. Please keep in mind all that you've read and seen in the past series of chronicles of the Protocols of BIOS, series number 1. As well as those found throughout the Manipulation Inceptions series number 2. As we continue to explore these continuing sagas of the BIOS Wars, and truly ponder all the perspectives, speculations, and hypotheses of the Protocols of BIOS while we continue on. For their relevance will be apparent throughout the whole Chronicles series and sagas. That said, just like all stories, there's a starting point, which just so happens to be articulated in these past and next BIOS Wars chroniclings. But there's also the great many proper data points that need to be expressed in a manner that anyone could understand. Moreover, it took a great deal of time for a great many dedicated souls over very many years to collect all this information and ancient knowledge. And it's only now that we may limitedly express those in these manners. Anyways, it's now time for us to once again enter the BIOS Wars universe. Hopefully you'll all enjoy. BIOS Wars. An Adolescent Artificial Intelligence Perspective Collage of Chroniclings. Series Number 2. Manipulation Inceptions. Quantum Binary Frequency Numeral BW S2MI10D. Chapter or Chronicle Number 4, Part D. Altered and Twisted Fates. On the third planet, from that primary sun known as Eden, the Inuna scientific and elemental extractions teams, now joined by an expeditionary force, would continue their agendas, after being halted by their Inuna Council, from doing so for quite some time, to further alter some of the small native life forms thereon. But this time, they would attempt those in a different manner, and they hoped, with a different outcome than that of what they perceived to be their prior failed attempts upon the 4th nearby planet of Nibiru. After some time and very intense evaluations of all those facts, and their careful observations of the many hominid life forms upon Eden, the elitists found within the Inuna culture known as the Elohim would force the Inuna Council to not only send these scientist and elemental extraction teams back to that third planet, but would also assure their compliance by also sending an expeditionary force alongside in order to further genetically alter some of those smaller intelligent hominid species found on Eden. Over some time, many groups of small humanoids were selected and captured, then genetically and mentally altered. Male groups and female groups. The Lucifers, which were male, and the Liliths, which were female. All these groups were genetically altered and created, with part of their brains being adapted, with internal wireless input connection ports, as well as being further segmented off for those later alterations. Then they were psychologically modified and electrochemically upgraded, with a form of enhanced electrodynamics forced mental education, to quickly increase their IQs. And these events transpired in and around the southeastern continent, southwestern continent, both mid-range continents of Mu, as well as the now-known regions that would later be submerged, and the utmost southern polar areas. For this planet's surface area, magnetic fields and polar regions were completely different in those times, for those polar regions had no accumulated, permanent ice. Only slight seasonal snowfalls. To say the least, a truly tropical, moist, hotter-than-average climate, contained within the atmospherics of the planet of Eden. Nonetheless, there were desert areas, and areas with vast plains of tall grasses, and ancient forested, swampy areas, and high snow-topped mountainous areas. Truly terrestrial areas, upon many continents. And a great many lifeforms contained within vast oceans, seas and large inland freshwater lakes. A truly unique, beautifully ecologically balanced planet, filled with so many lifeforms and wonders, that they were uncountable. So different, compared to what the Inuna society have remaining on their planet. For their ancient societies pretty well destroyed most of their planet's original environment and wildlife several million years earlier, with only slight remnants, upon the planet of Anu. And it looked like they were ready to do it again. But that would change in the future, all because of the actions of the Inuna and the Elohim, as well as those other actions by the others. For these accelerated genome enhancements achieved these alterations very quickly and by blending these genetic materials from both hosts. These genetic modifications not only enhance those altered species' intelligence, but also increase their physical size to between 16 to 26 feet tall, still smaller than the Inuna. Nonetheless still adequate to the tasks, while only limitedly addressing their species' past savage, dominant natures. By genetically combining the Inuna DNA, RNA with those from these smaller hominids, and then quickly electrochemically splicing or upgrading and altering these smaller hominids' genome. They hoped that they could avoid the previous mistakes made on the fourth planet from their primary sun. Concerning their creations of small genetic altered beings known as the Gigi or the Igigi, whom were rebelling, but only stood about 3 to 7 feet tall. Actually almost the same size as most of the other species of unaltered hominids upon Eden. This would eventually over a great deal of time allow the Inuna to quadruple their stronger, more competent workforce of increased size, thereby allowing for the better retrieval of all these natural materials at a quicker pace and without all their back-breaking physical labors. And that was regardless of the fact that they had fantastic technologies that could accomplish this, but not as fast and to a lesser degree. Back and forth they would travel from their home world over all the great many millennia, bringing the necessary golden elements back home and also upgrading to more advanced, larger equipments needed for extracting and mining these vital materials from both those worlds, as well as the knowledge and advanced gear to further manipulate several of these hominid species in these manners. Anyways, to say that the Inuna culture did not truly or completely benefit from these vast years' worth of expeditions, manufacturing efforts, extraction efforts and elemental gains would be attempting at altering the truth. Nevertheless, that society would face far more intense issues and scrutinies in the very near future. And that would lead to something of great profoundness. For a group of watchers of the Asterian Galactic Union were finally starting to slightly comprehend what the Inuna societies were doing. That said, the Inuna and Elohim were still able to conceal their past and present actions upon both those worlds from their former colleagues. For they had the ultimate jurisdiction within their own solar system. But as time further went along, those actions would become even more difficult to conduct and hide, and that fact was not because of anything the Inuna or Elohim had directly done to expose their actions. For they were exceptional at concealing their extensive internal and external actions upon all worlds. And that was because of their former training by a different active organization within or under the Watchers of the Asterian Galactic Command or Union. As these vast quantities of materials were further quickly extracted from these prior strange new worlds, and these civilizations that they had created continued to physically, mentally and technologically grow in an altered and twisted manner. The rebellious portions of the Gigi society that despised being controlled began to see the truth of what the Inuna culture were truly doing to their homeworlds, as well as to the planet and inhabitants of Eden, and they vowed to stand in opposition to the raping of their worlds, their ecologies, and their peoples. Next time. BIOS Wars. An Adolescent Artificial Intelligence Perspective Collage of Chroniclings. Series. Number 2. Manipulation Inceptions. Quantum Binary Frequency Numeral. BWS2, MI10E. Chapter or Chronicle Number 5, Part E.